Hey, what's up? My name's Hank, aka Cali Green. So the last video that I made was even more popular than the first video I made like this. I didn't realize you guys like this format. I've been doing it wrong for 11 years, I guess. But I can see why. You know, there's a lot of information coming at you. It's a one-on-one situation, so yeah, I understand. But what I thought I'd do is I looked through my comments. I've been doing this for over 11 years, man, and I thought I'd look through my comments to see what's the most common question that comes up. And one of the most common questions that come up is, how many plants can I grow in the space that I have? So most people are growing in grow tents like this one here. So I think that's what I want to talk about today. The number of plants you can grow in a space, the benefits, and I guess the downsides to them. You have just tuned in to a Cali Green Grow video. If you're a first-time grower, have never grown before, or just like watching grow videos, click subscribe, hit the notify bell, and grow along with me. Question that gets asked all the time is, how many plants can I grow in a 2x2 grow room or in a 4x4 grow room or whatever size it is? I'm always getting this question, but it takes a little bit of explanation, more than I can respond in a comment. So that's what I want to try to do. I want to try to cover that right now and talk about that. So the thing is that, all right, so your plant can only grow as big as the space that you're in allows you to grow, right? So if you have a 2x2 space, your plant can only grow to fill up that 2x2 space. That's pretty simple. It's easy to understand. I think the misunderstanding or maybe not misunderstanding, but the idea of newer growers is that if you have more plants, you're going to harvest more. There's going to be a heavier weight because, you know, the way they're thinking is each plant's going to produce a certain amount of weight. And if I do that times 4, then I'm going to get 4 times that, right? So, yeah, I mean, to a certain point, but you got to think about the space too, because if the space doesn't allow these plants to grow big enough to produce the amount that you're thinking about, or the amount that you think you're going to produce, it's not going to be produced. You feel me? Hopefully that you understand what I'm saying. But what I mean is, if you have 4 plants in a 2x2 room and you grow those out and they get pretty big and they fill up the whole room, right? And then you harvest in a 2x2 room, let's say you harvest like 10 ounces, right? And then another guy has a same size room, but he's growing 1 plant in a larger pot, and he grows out his plant. It takes him longer because he's dealing with 1 plant, but he fills up the room as well, and he gets 10 ounces because the space that you're in only allows you to grow that amount. And you know, there's other things involved here too. I mean, there's nutrition, and there's the light quality and the health of the plant and things like that. But we're not concentrating on that right now. We're just talking about the amount of plants that you can grow in a room. So when you grow multiple plants and you're using, let's say, 5-gallon pots, so there's 4 5-gallon pots in there. Now you have 4 plants in there. They may be clones, or they may be from seed. If they're from seed, we'll get into that. But let's just say they're from clones, so they're exactly the same. Now, even though they're from clone and they're the exact same strain from the same parent plant, they're not necessarily going to grow exactly the same. The thing about plants is that they compete for resources, including light. So you might have a plant or a clone that's just a little bit better rooted, that's gonna stretch for that light just a little bit more. And you also have 4 different potting soil mixes. You may have started with the same mix, but you have 4 pots. And even though you started with the same mix, those are 4 separate universes there. You feel me? You know what I'm saying? Because 4 different things could be going on in those 4 different pots if you're not careful. Even if you're trying your best to keep it the same. Especially when you're dealing with organics. Because when you're dealing with organics, it's not like synthetics where it's you drop in the freaking fertilizers or the nutrients at a certain pH and a certain temperature and you're good. I mean, you're really relying on microbes and these processes, these organic processes to happen, and they could be happening differently in each one of these pots. I'm not an expert, by the way. I'm just, going off the top of my head and trying to explain things the way that I understand them. I might not be the best at understanding these things, but I can share my opinion, my thoughts, and my ideas, and it's up to you to look into them, try them, and whatever. But soil environment aside, you might be dealing with a situation where you have plants that are growing faster than other plants, that are healthier than other plants. And it's not necessarily a bad thing. I mean, you can train them and you can dedicate your time to it, but I'm just saying it's a lot easier when you have one single plant, one single pot. If you have an issue, it's one single issue. The plant's growing at a rate that you can control. It's not multiple plants growing at different rates. I mean, these are the benefits of growing a single plant, right? But there's benefits to growing multiple plants as well. The main benefit to growing multiple plants is being able to harvest the same amount of weight in a shorter period of time than if you were growing one single plant in the same sized room. And that's because when you have multiple plants, they fill the room quicker. I mean, it's just common sense, right? If you have one single plant, you have to wait for that plant to get big enough to fill that room. You have to leave her in veg longer, right? So that's the main benefit of growing multiple plants. I personally feel like there's a lot more negatives to growing multiple plants than there is positives. I'm a home grower. I don't have a time schedule. I don't mind going maybe 3 weeks longer, 2 to 3 weeks longer. Now, whether you're growing multiple plants or just one single plant, I recommend that you get the biggest pot possible that'll fit in that room. So if the 5 gallon is the biggest you can get that'll fit 4 in that room, then get that 5 gallon. If you're just growing one single plant and the biggest pot that'll fit in there is a 30 gallon, get that 30 gallon. I think I'm probably going to have to make another video about the size of the pots because we can get into detail on that as well. But when it comes to organics, the size of the pot is super important. Now, if you decide to grow multiple plants in one tent, the best advice I can give you is to pay attention to the way your plant grows or your plants grow and make sure that you keep them in check. And this could be, through a low stress training or through pruning, whatever it takes to keep them even and in check. You should treat each individual plant individually. You feel me? Like you might be mixing up, you might be watering them all at the same time, but make sure you check them to make sure that maybe 1 or 2 are not dry. You feel me? Like maybe a plant likes to drink a little bit more water than the other, even if they're clones. Maybe one's root system is a little bit more developed than the other. So just treat them individually. Pulse makes high-tech environmental Wi-Fi monitors you can check from anywhere in the world. You could be in Hawaii, taking a vacation, and check back on your grow room. It also logs and stores all the information, so if you had a good run, or a bad one, you can always check the logs to see what the environment was like. But the company has 3 flavors, the Pulse 1, the Pulse Pro, and the Hub. But they just added a new model to the lineup, the Pulse Zero. This is their most economic version, but it's still powerful. And unlike other so-called Wi-Fi monitors, this one comes Wi-Fi capable out the box. You don't have to buy extra stuff. So if you're looking to improve your growing skills, look the Pulse and lock your shit in. Don't wait until your plant starts showing signs that it's in trouble before you act. You gotta be all over it. That's the thing about organics, right? Like, you have to make sure that you're on top of your shit, because in organics, things happen very slowly, and if something goes wrong, it's gonna be a slow process to bring it back. You feel me? It's not gonna happen immediately. So this whole time we've been talking about clones, but if we want to talk about seeds, then things change just a little bit. Because when you're dealing with seeds, you're dealing with, dang it, how do I explain this? I guess the best way to explain this like this. If you have siblings, you can easily relate. So your brother, your sister doesn't look exactly like you, right? They're slightly different. You have the same parents, but they're slightly different. And if your parents keep having kids, they're always going to be slightly different than the next, right? They might share common traits, but they're not exactly the same. And that's how seeds are. So let's say that you have multiple pots in that same space, and you plant 4 seeds of the same spice from the same breeder. You have 4 siblings. You might have an athletic sibling. You might have a smart sibling. You might have one that doesn't like to do shit. You feel me? I'm just giving you some examples of stuff. But in real world, it might be, you might have a fast growing plant. You might have one that doesn't grow so fast. You might have one that's sluggish. Right? So they're not always going to grow exactly the same, which means that the one that grows the biggest or the most robust is going to outcompete the rest. And one may like more water than the other, or take up more nutrients than the other. So when you grow from seed and you have multiple plants in one tent, then you're really dealing with a large variation of things that can happen. But I think a lot of times when guys grow multiple plants from seed, it's because they want to have multiple flavors or varieties. And I mean, me too, right? You want to have everything all at once. You're greedy, man. No, I'm just playing. But yeah, I mean, that's dope. I mean, I'd like to do the same thing, but you got to think that they're not going to grow exactly the same, especially if they're not the same variety, right? If it's coming from different breeders and they're different spicy serrano peppers, they're not even going to be close to if they were like siblings. So that's something to keep in mind right there. Yeah, man. So in conclusion, if you're growing multiple plants, it's going to take a shorter amount of time to harvest and finish your grow than if you were growing in a single plant, because a single plant is going to take a lot longer to grow out and fill the same space. But the benefit to having a single plant is that if there are any issues, you're only dealing with one plant. You're not dealing with the growth rates of 4 different plants or 5 different plants. You're not dealing with the environments in 4 different pots. It's just one pot. So, and I may be biased because I've been growing in single pots for a long time. But you know what, man? You know, this is just my opinion, man. I'm just sharing with you what I know, or I think I know. And you might want to find someone, if you're looking for more information, look into it, man. This is what it's all about. You know, there's no rules to this. You just gotta do you, and eventually you'll figure it out and you'll have your own way of doing things. So that's all I got for you today. I don't remember my outro right now. I'm gonna try it anyway. I want to thank you for watching, commenting, and subscribing. If you haven't subscribed, please do. Don't forget to check out the links in the description section of this video. Follow me on Instagram. Check out my Patreon. Hit the notify bell. And if you like this video, click like. Peace.